EPOC was a social consensus body that I advocated for and worked closely with Dr. Peter Phillips, and I will tell you how this happened, Ramon, because you need to know the facts, my brethren. Okay? We and Ramon and Senator Ferguson, Small Ferguson and I, Senator Small Ferguson and I work very closely together, right now. But he was their own because he was their own at the time. And I myself and another CEO of another financial sector company sat down with Dr. Peter Phillips, and I said to Dr. Phillips, we are not signing that debt exchange agreement unless we get an oversight body. That is how EPOC came about. Okay? And I worked closely with Dr. Peter Phillips. We agreed on who would sit on this body. Dr. Peter Phillips, we agreed on the unions, we agreed on agriculture, we agreed on small business, we agreed on the financial sector, we agreed on that's agriculture and small business, the unions. We agreed that would be the representation on EPOC, Dr. Peter Phillips and I. I went to my office and I wrote the terms of reference with Mike Hilton and Mark Harrison, and EPOC was signed off the following morning. Okay? We're going to get to it. Right? So EPOC was not conceptualized by the PNP. The financial sector came to the table. You did.
Grand Rising, 411 family. How are you all doing today? I was to come on yesterday, but the lives are not my thing. And so I was a bit nervous, very nervous. I put it off to 4, then I put it off to 6, then I put it off to 8. Then I called Karen and said, Karen, do you think I should go on at 10? Karen said, I trust you can still hear me. Yes, my internet is topsy-turvy, and therefore every now and then the image will go. So I just switch. So anyway, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to come on this morning. Yes. So here I am. And I want to wish everyone a belated Happy Mother's Day, the females and the males too, who are mothers to their children. They grow up the children and they have to nurture them and, give them advice, everything that a mother is supposed to do. So for the father who mothered me, Happy Mother's Day to you as well. I trust your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, such as they were, and you have some. I don't have any children, but man, the amount of children pass through my hand. You have plenty of people like me. Yes, the perpetual aunties. For the perpetual aunties, belated Happy Mother's Day to you, and I trust the children made you very happy, special, and feel appreciated. Now, I don't know what happened to my visuals. I think, yes, the internet is gone for now. I'm going to have to relocate. I just have to make up my mind, because if I'm going to do this and make myself useful to you, bringing you information, that others, may not, because they have a different type of programming. My one is to get into the research, get into the deep things, show you the connected on lines and how things are connected. That's my role. That's why I had nothing to do the other day until Nara came about to give me something to do. Yes, man. Anyway, what we have lined up for you today is the presentation in the budget. The presentation in the debate about the Naira bill on Friday in the Senate. And I'll be focusing on Keith Duncan. Now, for many of you, you may know who Keith Duncan is. Many of you may not. Keith Duncan is the son of D.K. Duncan, Dr. D.K. Duncan, the late Dr. D.K. Duncan, who was a general secretary of the PNP, a minister in the PNP government, one of them radicals, serious socialist, or I should say democratic socialist. And he had, I think 2 or 3 wives. So Keith is one of a pair of twins, Donna, his twin sister, and they are, well, I'm not sure if they still are, but they and the mother and them, and I do believe Patricia Duncan, they were a part of Jamaica money market brokers. It was started by the mother, my understanding is, and they came into the business. So for all his life, he was a businessman. Let me see if the internet is back. I do think it is. Let me see if I can get back the photo. So all his life, he was a businessman. And we always associate the family with the PNP because of their father, DK. Anyway, don't seem as if we'll have the visuals for now. So he now is a government senator. The JLP government brought him in as a senator. And as a consequence, he is making a presentation in support of the Naira bill. Now, here's what is important about Keith Duncan. Here's what is important about him. He is a businessman who headed the PSOJ at some point or the other. And he has been the head of, various government board and so on. And he's also a big businessman, big respected businessman in Jamaica. So when he says, don't worry about Naira, if that is what he says, I'm not going to preempt you, right? Because some of you may not have heard his presentation, and so we're not going to spoil it for you. But if he gives his endorsement to Naira, and he speaks to the various concerns, legitimate concerns of persons about Naira, because you see, when you're going to do something and it is a little bit different from the norm, people will have concerns, right? And so he is there now to explain. So he would be the sort of person who can ease the concerns of people because he's a businessman. You follow me? And a businessman that people will feel they can trust. So his word is something that people feel that they can trust because of who he is and the fact that he has a PNP background and he's in the government. And I mean, he can bring together so many different facets of the society. Not funny, including the business sector. Now we know that we have already established that the PSOJ was a minority organization, a white organization that was established in the 1970s to protect the interests of the minority white people. Now remember that in the 70s, that was 10 years after independence, when we were getting independence, there was a lot of concern by the British and their elements about what the majority black people government that is now separated to some degree, political independence, what would that mean for them and then property and then business and so on. So when Mandy came and the PNP came with the socialism, and he was, up and down with Castro and supporting the causes of the African countries, getting independence and so on, some of these white minority, the 0.4% in the population, they were nervous. And the reason why I say it is a white organization is because if you look at the presidents, right, in a country where there are so many business people, big business people, And some of these businesses are run by black people. It was amazing to see the amount of white persons who headed the PSOJ. Um, you had maybe one or two Indians, maybe one or two Chinese, one or two black people, but the vast majority of the presidents were white, Jewish white, right? That is what the PSOJ represents. So I tell you that to say that he was able to head an organization like that. So, the white minority must have trusted him. The business people would have trusted him. The big business people as well would have trusted him. So he can now liaise between the business and government. So that is his relationship. I think that he would bring to the table what he would bring to the table in being a senator, whichever side he was on. But as it is, it's on the government side now, the JLP government. And that raised a lot of consternations, I can tell you, in the PNP ranks. There were some people inclined to grumble quietly and grumble out loud. So that is the situation. Now, we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to bring you his entire presentation. And the reason for it is that I did give some explanation about NARA, the technical side of it, how it would operate in practice to see whether or not what was being promulgated in the law can work, because they said that it couldn't achieve what it set out to achieve, right? And so I tried to let you see what NARA would look like on the ground. And we did that imaginative thing, pretending that it was, already in existence. Yes. So we're going to talk about Keith's presentation, because Keith's presentation not only was it sobering, but it gave a lot of background and all of the concerns that the opposition was raising and the civil society, which we all believe is aligned to the opposition under the Quiet, right? He addressed it. And I'm going to let you listen to that. Now, I want to say this, and I said it on the War Room on Saturday night. I want to say this. When I turned to the Senate on Friday and was watching the presentations, well, one or two presentations, the thing that struck me more than anything else was how disciplined the senators were. Now, and when Bunting was there as leader of opposition business in the Senate, you had Lambert Brown and you had some others, and they were really giving a hard time. When you look at these persons in the Senate now, sitting quietly, listening to each other's presentation, it was such a breath of fresh air. And I said to myself, they are behaving this way, and it must be inspired by the leader, right? The leader of opposition business in the Senate is Donna Scott Motley. And if you look at her, how she's poised, and she's also herself listening to what is being said. And, somebody asked for some clarity about something that Keith was saying, and he gave an explanation and so on. But they sat quietly listening. Nobody was on them phone. At least one of the time, the young lady named Tem, she named Thame, I think it's pronounced Tem. She went on her laptop and do something. And the young fellow, Alan Barnard or something like that, he ran it as a candidate in St. James. He turned to somebody and said, so after that, everybody was just listening. Contrast that to what is going on in the lower house. On the PNP side especially. The big problem with the Labour Party side is that when you look across, it look very scanty, and Mas Andre, you need to do something about that. I think I talk about the thing there before, Prime Minister, look good. And maybe that is the reason why Mark Golding insists that for him people come to Parliament, even though they clearly don't want to be there. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So when you look at what is going on in the House of Representatives. Now, something was said on the war room the other night. I think there was this talk about the House of Representatives and the Senate. There are two different entities. You have the House of Representatives, where you have the MPs, and you have the Senate, and they are both part of the Parliament, right? So we're just making a correction. If you got a false impression about what was being said, or should I say, if you got an incorrect impression about what was being said, then I just corrected it. So, in the House of Representatives, where you have the MP, then, I mean, I saw the last sitting, and there is a speaker who is a referee in the room, having to tell, you see, she has to be constantly lecturing the opposition members. Many of them young and new, and they more shut them out and keep quiet like all new members, and let the older one them talk and then them learn as them go along, right? Constantly the speaker has to be talking to them and telling them the standing order says this, go to the standing order, so and so. All of them have the little blue book, you know. It's only Mark Golding gets to turn to Philip Paulwell and them reading along, right? To make a point in case the speaker get it wrong, or, you know. So she has to be constantly lecturing these people about what the standing orders say. And while she was doing so on a point of order, because Mark Golding does not understand the point of order, and it happens to people, but we know him have some kind of problem. He might be bright in some areas, and he can't grasp certain things, you know. And points of order is one big problem. He don't know when to rise. Either that, or know when to rise, and is abusing the situation by trying to, you know, in Parliament. Let me say this. In Parliament, you can only speak at a specific time. Sometime, once. After that, you can only rise on a point of order. So what usually happens, speakers get up and they make them point, and you see everybody on the other side feel screw up because they can't say nothing, right? They can't rise. They feel screw up. And when their time comes to speak, then explain, and then throw some blow up on the other side. When you see the other side, eyebrow then knit up because they can't get up and say nothing. What Mark Golding has been doing, he has been getting up to say something. You understand? To clarify and therefore dilute the effect of what the other speaker is saying. But he's rising on a point of order, and it is not a point of order. A point of order apparently is what you use when something factually incorrect was said and you want to correct the record. When something that is said is not true and you want to correct the record, you're not supposed to rise on any other point. You just take your licks, right? And that is why whenever you get up to speak, and I'm going to say this to the parliamentarians, whenever you get up to speak, make sure that you not only say what you want to say, but you must anticipate what the other guy is going to say on the opposite side and answer that as well. What you would have done is diffuse them own arguments, right? And then we try to spin it this way and spin it that way. But if you put the correct information before the parliament, the spinning will only look like, well, a lie, and especially if them had to interject something into it. You can now get up on a point of order, right? But what has been happening is that they have been focusing, it seems to me, on saying what they want to say and don't remember about the other side. Leave gaps, and the other side just jump up and start to fling on blows, and then they can't talk. That is a cause, I think, of the frustration and the reason why I hear all these barbs and chattering and interruptions that go on. But that is an aside. Now, back to what I believe is the behavior of the parliament compared to the Senate, the lower house compared to the Senate. In that sitting, where the speaker was attempting to explain to them what a point of order is, and saying to them, this is a point of order. Do not rise unless you have a genuine point of order. If you rise to your feet and you ask to interrupt the other speaker, because when a member rise while somebody is speaking and you rise, the other person is supposed to sit. She's saying to them, if it is not a genuine point of order, that person will have no obligation to sit. That's what she was explaining. This is why she was explaining. Alfred does him have one little earpiece in a him ears, and you can see him concentrate like him listen to something. Then just now, she turned to him and said something, and a conversation start. But here the point. You have Nikisha Burchell that don't know nothing. She and Angela was in a deep conversation, like 89 Old Hope Road, locked down, the PNP headquarters. And I forced them to meet in a parliament and chat about things, right? And you have others doing other things. When the speaker said to them, members on the opposition, this is, and basically saying it's for your benefit. I am here telling you something is for your benefit. And then pause and then look. And when she continued, just turn around to those beside her and then enter into conversation. At that time, Nikisha Burchell and Angela Brownberg entered into conversation, and everybody was doing their own thing. And it reminded me of the movie To Serve with Love. You'd ever watch that movie? And I've seen other movies with, children. And what happened in some of these schools when they had a little bad, disruptive picnic where you can't beat, them culture, you can't beat the picnic them, So what then do, then take them and put them in a particular class, right? If them bright, them still have them and then try work with them. But if them not taken to them book, then just put them in the class. That is what the parliament look like. A big juvenile delinquent center. When man now pick out things out and eat, and I eat it back. When you now pick out things out and eat and I eat it back, people have things in their ears, people that on phone, people that on laptop, them have conversation. This is a display of an excessively ill-mannered set of people. All of us, and at their age, that is what would have been beaten into them head. At their age, born in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and some of the young ones, right? Now, people like Angela Brownberg, Mark Golding. Angela was born in the 50s, Mark Golding born 65. Philip Paul was born 62, I do believe. We went to Excelsior, he was 1 year ahead of me. And others like that. They would have learned, right, that whenever it is that a person is speaking, shut your damn mouth. And whenever you are speaking, you have every expectation that others will shut them out, right? It is in the standing order that if a person is speaking, standing and speaking, you keep quiet. If the speaker is speaking on her feet, you keep quiet. You have nothing to say to contribute to a debate. Keep quiet. And what you see in the House, in my view, are a group of people really who don't want to be there. Listen to what I'm saying to you, my friends. Them don't want to be there. And I'm saying to the opposition members, you don't have to be there. Mark Golding can't force you to be there. Mark Golding can't move you from the seat. That's the first thing. He can't move you from the seat. He can't move you from the seat for the next election, and he don't care. If him say come to Parliament and he make it a rule that you come to Parliament and you do not want to be there, don't come. Right? You have, as long as you ensure that you don't miss Parliament for 6 consecutive sessions, you're good. Come to Parliament, make sure you answer the roll call, sit down there for how long you want to and go on back. It is better that you are not there than you are there and offending people, because this is very highly offensive. Even your one PNP people not going to like it, because the culture, our culture do not tolerate that kind of behavior from nobody. You would not even tolerate that from your children. You imagine the speaker speaking and you turn your back. No, I should tell you, it's not. I don't think that she purposely did it, because I did watch and she was facing I'm talking about Angela Brownberg. She was facing the speaker for most of the time. But one of the times she feels that she must have something to say to Duncan, and she turned to him and I talked to him. While he speak up there, I counsel him about the standing orders that them don't know and don't understand and seem not to care. But the speaker is speaking, and she turned her back. No, that is the height of ill-manneredness. And if you had a problem with a teacher, even if the teacher wrong, and you went with your child, talk the truth now, and you went with your child and you love your picnic and the teacher wrong, and you there having a talk with the teacher, and the teacher turn and say something to the child, and the child turn around and turn her back to the teacher, what you would have do? You'd have tolerate that behavior? You might have lose your mind, right? That is the culture. It is just something that is not done. Sometimes when you're in an argument with a man, the man might kiss him teeth, turn him back, and him walk away. That's a different thing than turning your back on somebody and having your own conversation. That is supposed to be intended as an insult. And even if you don't recognize that the person speaking to you and you have something that you say, oh, right, let me just remember this, and you turn your back, that is a no-no. So if you don't want to be in the parliament, don't come. And there's nothing Mark Golding can do about it. You clearly don't want to be there. You want to be on your laptop doing something. You want to be on your phone chatting to some people. You want to sit down with earpiece in your ears. You want to eat. Don't come in our parliament with that behavior. All of you in the parliament who not paying attention in a low house, go and get a copy. Go on the YouTube and go and look and see how you're supposed to behave, right? Clearly, those persons on the opposition side are intellectual people, but I think it has more to do also with the leader. Lambert Brown is the only one inside they put it on front bench now, right? And I'm sure if I was in the parliament, I would not be able to hear the speaker because he was talking that loud and he was distracting the speaker, right? So, but the others were so calm, listening. Listening, that's the key. And they had to listen to all these half an hour presentations, and then they got up and spoke for half an hour. I could not see what they were doing on the Labour Party side because while Keith was speaking, they showed only the opposition side. They never showed a wide angle of his side. But based upon what I saw from Morgan and from Christian Tavares Finson, those two at least, and I could see, now what's his name? Is this Cavalgale, the trade unionist? I could see that they were paying attention and giving support to them colleague, right? So I'm saying to everyone, maybe what you need to do when you see your MP, you need to tell them that them kind of behavior, they don't work. And it's better them don't come to the parliament than come to the parliament and offend people. That's my view. Stay home. Go on back in your constituency, go find something to do. Right? You don't have to come. And you don't have to come because you're not being paid by the sitting. Just remember that. In the Senate, they are being paid by the sitting, so they have to come there. Or they're not going to get no pay. You are not being paid for the sitting. So you don't have to be there. Furthermore, if you don't turn up for parliament, they're not going to deduct it out of your pay. So don't come. Go and go do something on your computer. Go and go plug things in your ears. Go and go chew and pick out things out of your teeth. All you want somewhere else, not in the parliament. Look good. Now, that is me getting all of that off of my chest. So, why I brought up the business about the parliament behavior and the behavior in the Senate is that it clearly comes down to leadership. Mark Golding is the one that is violating the rules most of the time. And all that is apparently happening is that his crew behind him is taking his cue. Angela Bromberg put her front. Remember, I said she never had a front before enough. And when we were there, she can't stop chat. She get up, she walk up and down, you saw it for yourself. And I think she was offering comic relief to her other colleagues. If she don't want to be there, don't be there, Angela. Go along somewhere else. Go somewhere else. You don't have to be there. not going to affect your pay. And for the 2 or 3 or 4 hours, you probably will find yourself thinking in your mind that you're doing something that's more productive. Go on. Right? Donna Scott Motley is leading the opposition in the Senate. It is Mark Golding who is leading the opposition in the Parliament, in the lower house. And it clearly must be him. Tolerate, you see it? When he want them to come, don't them come? So why is him can't tell them so them to behave themselves? Them to stop this constant phone thing and them to stop this constant chatting because him a do it. So they're taking the cue from him. So clearly what you're seeing is leadership, a distinct leadership difference between Donna Scott Motley in the Senate and what you see going on at the lower house. Right? And that is the point that I want to make. Maybe the next time PNP looking for a leader, them appoint Donna Scott Motley as the opposition leader and get her a seat. At least we were saying that for some time too. So that is that. And you can tell me in the comment section what you think. Now, guess what? Now, my phone charge run down overnight, and I have to plug it in. And this is the phone that, when it's low in charge and heated, it just goes, oops. I mean, I want to cut me off, so I'm going to plug it in. So I can't even read what you're saying. Let me take off my spectacles and see what you guys say. Oh, you say it's a deliberate thing. Delroy Morris said it's a deliberate thing. They all do it, and it is their plan. Peter Bunting is all over that plan. Disrespect the House Speaker to get to the Prime Minister. That's their plan. I think part of the problem is it don't matter who was the Speaker. It don't matter who was the Speaker, you know. Because if anybody was on the bench, them want to think that them have power. They actually believe that the 28 of them give them power. And the only power that 28 gives them is to make sure that whenever there is a bill, the government people they have to be there, right? Because if they have their full strength and they are going to Parliament, when they have their full strength on the government side, have less in number, it simply means that them can't pass nothing, right? So that's the only power they exercise. The second power they exercise is that when it comes now to the matter of the Constitution, they are in a position where, because the government no longer has 2/3 majority in the lower house, nothing can even pass the lower house. But I already said what my point of view is on this Constitution. The Constitution, that 2/3 majority of the people did not vote to impose on us. It was in the Parliament that it got the unanimous support. And in it, it says, we, the parliamentarian, we vote for this thing. But if you want to change what we vote for, you have to go get 2/3 majority. How can that make any sense? That Constitution and that Section 49, you can dump it. But the problem is that if you do that, you may have the next government coming in and doing the same thing, except you can get rid of the Constitution, simply abolish it. And what you put in place, you pass it, and then you put that Constitution before the people. You can say a simple, excuse me, you can say a simple majority can change it, or you can say whatever majority that put it in place, at that majority, exceeding that majority, can change certain provisions. Nobody can after that come talk about so they might change it willy-nilly because of the people's, that would now be the people's constitution. It's a simple matter. A simple matter. Another thing the government should think of doing, and I'm straying a bit, but as the ideas and come, it have to just dash out so. Is that the reason why they're able to change their constitution in Guyana, Trinidad, and I believe Barbados and the other places? It's because their Senate is structured differently. They have senators that can be recommended for appointment by the Prime Minister, senators that can be recommended for appointment by the leader of the opposition, and senators that can be appointed by the Governor General. And that is what enables them, when they can get the Governor General people who are independent people that the Governor General appoint, right? to side with you and your changes that you want. So you get the constitution changed. So you get the 2/3. Norman Manley though, and it has to be Norman, not Buster. Because Buster leave everything up to him. He decided that they wanted a mechanism that will not allow the change unless the two parties agree on that change. And so in the Senate, it's only the Prime Minister and leader of the opposition that nominate persons as senators, right? Now, when you come to something like um, Jamaica being a republic, Jamaica being a republic, nobody is going to allow any other, no party. None of the party is going to allow the other party and for them leader to get that glory because they would now become the father or mother of the new Jamaica. Just like what happened with Sankara in Burkina Faso. I believe Burkina Faso was named when he became president, right? He became the father of Burkina Faso, as opposed to the one who brought them into independence, right? So they're not going to do it, and therefore, no matter how much you say the constitution reform is excellent and good for us, the opposition will always not support it. And then when they become government at some later date and they want to institute the same thing, the government that was pushing it at that time, and who's now in the opposition, they're not going to support it because they're not allowing them to get the glory. And so it will never happen. And this must have been the plan. They, the generation before me or two, they did not want the constitution to change. They wanted Jamaica to remain a monarchy, a democratic monarchy. I don't know what you can say, one call it, right? Where the head of state is the monarch in England, right? That is what they wanted, and they didn't want that changed. Simple as that. So we are either going to sit down and allow it to continue into the next generation when we gone, are we going to sit about it? What needs to be done about it needs to be done. Abolish it, remove Section 49, get the agreement of broad society to agree so that, because you're going to need the people to vote and get the people to have them input. And once the people sign off on it, maybe you run a poll and see what the people think about it. Then you put it to the vote and let the people vote on it. And after that, that's it. If you don't get the vote, 50% or more, then it's in a problem, because it means to say the new constitution will remain in place, but it is a sitting down constitution. So all the opposition would have to do is to tell their people, don't vote for it. You understand? And then we're not going to problem. So it's something that would have to be thought out and thought about very carefully. Now I'm going to quickly bring to you some information about FAST. It's a fast track program that the government has introduced in March. The Prime Minister announced it in his presentation. And what FAST is, it is a program to fast track the approval process for the government and private sector who may come together for the rebuilding or the reconstruction process and new initiative pertaining to economic growth and so on and so forth. So I need to explain to you what it is, because let's see now, let me see if this is it. Yes, because you're going to hear it being mentioned by Duncan, Keith Duncan, Senator Duncan. So let me move over now, and I'm going to check to see if you can hear me. All right. And if you're hearing an echo. All right, switching over now. Now, let me know if you're hearing an echo. Are you hearing an echo? That's all right, Andrea, man. Anytime you reach, you reach. And you can always go back and watch from the beginning. That's the beauty about YouTube, you're not forced to watch the thing from the time when you start, but you know. All right. So let me see now. Are you hearing me? Is there any echo? No echo. Great. Wonderful. So it says here, government to push major investment projects through Fast Jamaica. And this was published by the Jamaica Information Service on March 20, 2026. All right, so it's a slide, so we're moving along. And it says the government of Jamaica is advancing the national growth strategy through the introduction of the Facilitated Acceleration of Strategic Transformation, FAST Jamaica, a new framework designed to accelerate major investment projects and economic growth. So that's the objective, right? It is to fast track. And I would dearly say, and I would like to say, that this appears to me to be a kind of an experiment. Um, Depending on how it goes, the government may well, um, you know, add more things to it to fast track. But I would have loved to get my hands on them government entities. I mean, I'm familiar with them, right? It has to go through the municipal corporation, and you have several plans. Keith said it was 7, I said it was 5, 7 of them, and they have to go to different departments for approval. And I'm thinking that since the government has this digital push, that maybe there is a way to digitalize the process. For example, when the plans, and if these are drawings from the architect or the land surveyor, and it's done on a program called AutoCAD, where they design the layout of the scheme, for example, let us say it's a subdivision. Now, the rules are that you must have fire hydrant, or you must have this, and it must be so distance, and the road this, and wholly for something. All of that can be put into a kind of supplemental program that works with AutoCAD, telling the with all that instruction, all of the government requirement and instruction, load bearing and all that kind of something there, window spacing, anything at all that them have, put it in that program. And whenever the architect design, and then put that design through the testing to see whether or not anything is out of place, it point up, bam, that fire hydrant at the wrong place. You get me? And so him just make the adjustment, and then when him finish correcting everything that needs to be corrected, the plan is now ready. Once him print that, him send the physical drawing to the municipal corporation, but he should also send a copy of it, a draft, in a digital format. Matter of fact, the same plan. Maybe you should just send the plan, because if them can't put the drawing, and it might be different from the plan. So send the plan. Send the plan to the national what send the plan to the to the municipal corporation in a digital form, and let them run it through their system and check. And after them check and the system finds nothing, they should go and do them own check, human eye check, just in case, because you're talking about life and death. With construction, it's life and death. You're talking about people's safety. And then the thing would be faster. The reason why we have computers is because computers at that time, they were doing calculations faster than the human mind could do, right? We can go down and we can do our accounts. We can do our accounts manually, but when we go do the addition, right, it will take longer and you can make mistake. You see what I'm saying? So if they can digitalize the process in the way I suggested, so be it. When it comes to NEPA, and I believe I heard many years ago that that is the intent. NEPA should do research in all pieces of land in Jamaica. Not just wait until somebody come and say, I want to develop this land in such and such a way. NEPA should just go and just routinely, this piece of land over here, this piece of land. And I tell you where that idea came from. It actually came from the Ministry of Agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture, if you go up there now, they can tell you where every piece of land can grow, right? Whether the land down in Flagaman can grow peanut, cashew, and what other crop. And tell you what kind of soil, the pH, everything. They map it out. They got some money, some loan, and they did that, right? If they can do that with NEPA, then NEPA will say, over here, so you have some endangered species. This is the only development that should go on in this area, right? And they may say, okay, what we can do in this area is agriculture. What kind of agriculture? Not one that won't put chemical in the ground, but one like apiary, where you grow bees. That is, I mean, you can't get more environmental friendly than that. Then you can talk about mushroom, anything at all that is not going to put poison into the ground. You can do the same thing with the catchment areas where you have water supply, underground water supply, and they can say, okay, this one has a catchment area, it's supplying so much water to, to the various rivers and streams and whatever, and they then determine this is what we can do on this land. Certain type of agriculture, certain type of construction, and so on. So nobody now come to them with not out of the way. They want to put they want to put a gas station over a catchment. You understand? Or they want to put some kind of agricultural thing that when you use chemical and pesticide in a certain areas. And then we'll be able to do things much faster. The persons who want to invest and want to go into certain type of agriculture knows will be able to tell now, if you can even computerize it much better, they can tell now, okay, I need such and such an area, and then just go and look and say, I'm going to look and see for a piece of land over here so they can buy. You understand what I'm saying? And that will make everything move a lot faster. But that won't take money and that won't take time. And I do believe that maybe NEPA is already has already started the process. If the government can throw some more money them way and make them speed it up, so much better. So that is that. Anyway, let me continue now reading what it says here. Yes, man. Me on a roll this morning, eh? Yes, man. And I never know what I was going to talk about, Anyway, so wait say here, so now. Now, it says, the Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, made the announcement during the contribution to the 2026-2027 budget debate, and that was on March 19. Now, it says now, and this is the Prime Minister, they are quoting, Fast Jamaica will establish a dedicated pathway to fast-track strategic priority investment projects critical to Jamaica's economic transformation, particularly those with an investment value of $150 million US. It's now down to $15 million US or more. That can commence implementation within a year. So there's a time frame, right? Between now and next year, March, they can always extend it, I'm sure, and could be integrated into the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority network of projects, he said. So I don't know if we need to go any further. Oh, yes, I think we do. So what this is saying, if you have a $15 million US idea and you want to partner with the government, because it is between government and the private sector. It is not, based upon what I read, a private sector thing, meaning to say, if you have a scheme you want to put up somewhere, you and your money, I don't think you'd qualify under this program, right? But nothing wrong with asking, because you're going to see later on as I read that they even open it, they leave it open for, any other thing that you might come with. So let me continue. Now, it says, Dr. Holness informed that the framework will focus on projects in sectors that will shape Jamaica's competitiveness, such as, and this is the key. So these are the projects that the government is looking to promote, right? You have any project to do with energy, infrastructure, digital infrastructure and telecommunications, logistics, air and seaports, water, sewage, and desalination low income housing and urban development. You have them kind of project there, and you have it idea long time put on, run go on to government now, and they will let them think about it. And what they will do is incorporate it into NARA, which means it is NARA and the power that NARA has to, this is my word, negotiate time frame, timelines with these government entities so that them not take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to approve your project. Them do it within an agreed specified time. Follow what I'm saying? That's the purpose. Now it's very interesting about energy, and I would think that the most important input would be energy, because if the energy cost is high, electricity is high, and some of these businesses may have to use electricity, right? You're going to have a problem, because when people look on Jamaica and see for where energy costs and look elsewhere, it will turn off every other project that won't come online. So I would think that the government should look very closely at the energy, right? Look and see abroad what them do. We don't want a nuclear energy because then can't even manage to with Jamaica kill way off over here. So let them stay with that. But you know, people are trying to find solution to the fossil fuel problem. So there is it. So I'm saying that the energy and the cost of energy, we already brought down crime. So that is a plus for us. The inefficiency with the government bureaucracy, them trying to see if they can solve that. It's very complicated. And then now there's cost of energy. All of those things will turn off people from investing in Jamaica. Right? So they're also talking about low income housing development and urban development. So persons that have low income housing come up with ideas how you can produce housing for less than $10 million. That now the government will be interested in what you have to say. Next, let me see. It says other sectors are high value tourism, such as wellness, medical, and sports tourism, entertainment, and creative industries, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, education, and research, specialized healthcare, high value agriculture and agro industrial processing, advanced manufacturing, and critical minerals, including rare earth elements. Now, this now is an attempt by government to change the government is trying to change the economy itself into something more than just just for agriculture. Them getting into things like when you talk about sports tourism. I mean, I have an idea, Me have an idea. Me call LICEP, and yes, all right. So one of these days, I might pinch government and tell them about the one. It's kind of highfalutin, but it don't cost government nothing, and it can work. Now, so all of these that I just mentioned, the high value tourism, wellness, medical, and sports tourism. Now, all of that includes what I would call environmentally friendly projects. The only one that could give a problem is the one that says critical minerals, including rare earth elements. Now, that may involve mining. And me not too fancy mining, because you dig up the place and cause all kind of other problems by digging up the place. So, but that's the only one. All of the others that were mentioned are environmental friendly. It won't affect the environment. You simply put something on the land and generate income from it, right? And all of these are also, they are able to develop the people, because they talk about STEM education and research. That is very good, right? And healthcare and all of that. And the high value tourism, they talk about the healthcare, medical tourism. That's we set up a hospital here and people from foreign come down to get treatment for cancer and all of that. Henry Lowe, Dr. Henry Lowe. He has he's a leader in that, and I was a little bit surprised that the government never set him up somewhere. I mean, in another culture, them set him up somewhere. By Natal, or they have St. Joseph Hospital and put him down there and say, man, go on, go do your thing with cancer. And then you get the people coming from abroad here in that Jamaica can cure them and then cancer and then come. And we cure them and then cancer and then go home. Charge them a whole for money too. And for those who can't afford it, in Jamaica, we can always give it to them free because other people pay for it. Other people's insurance. All right, so I think it says the Prime Minister said Cabinet will retain the ability to designate additional sectors where strategic opportunities arise. That means to say they can add more sectors to it. If somebody were to come with an idea and it's not included in this, but then think it's a damn good idea and it falls under a different sector, then can put that sector in it just so that they can do business with this person. It says now that central to FAST Jamaica will be a Strategic Investments Council, a high-level body tasked with the initial screening and evaluation of major investment proposals. So what is going to happen is the people come with them proposals, and you're going to have this council, and it's the Strategic Investment Council that will determine which ones fit into the category of, $15 million and more, and it would have the impact that it is intended to have, economic growth, and all them kind of something there that I mentioned before. And that council then recommend to the cabinet, I think you should try this, and I think you should go into business with this one, or facilitate this one, or include this one, or make this project your project. And they're also going to recommend whether they think that the government should go in as a partnering with the private sector organization that is bringing the plan to them, or them should enter into a joint venture. So it is actually a FAST is about government and private sector partnership, and the private sector will come in with their money and government will come in. But there is a component of the loans that the government got that is supposed to go into projects, private sector projects. I'm going to do that. I'm not sure if this was FAST was intended to accommodate those projects, but I have to do a little bit more research on that for you. Yes. So that is what FAST is. I hope everybody got it, and if not, I'll talk about it another time. So what I'm now going to let you do is to listen to Mr. Keith Duncan, Senator Keith Duncan. And in my mind, his contribution was excellent. And I'm going to let you listen to him now, right? And tell me what you're thinking in the comment section. Yes.
Afternoon, colleagues. Mr. President, I rise in support of the National Reconstruction and Resilience.
When he's speaking, I want you to tell me in the comments section if you're hearing any echo at all. I'll go watching.
And Resilience Authority bill. And I do so because I say, without any doubt in my mind, that it is in the best interest of Jamaica. I have given freely of my time in leadership of private sector bodies, oversight bodies, socio-economic programs, various task forces, example, the COVID Economic Recovery Task Force, government boards, and I'm now a government senator. I stand here as a patriotic Jamaican who wants to see Jamaica deliver on its promise. This is a game-changing moment for Jamaica, where we as a country can convert disaster and a crisis into a tremendous opportunity to fast-track Jamaica's development. Let me begin, Mr. President, by acknowledging the contributions of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that the concerns have been raised about the concentration of authority in a single body, about the adequacy of accountability mechanisms are not frivolous. They are the right questions to ask. My purpose today is not to dismiss those concerns, but to address them, as I believe the bill is fit for purpose with appropriate safeguards. But it also demonstrates how this bill can facilitate and fast-track Jamaica's development. But let's first start with the scale of the matter that we're dealing with. Mr. President, Hurricane Melissa inflicted $12.2 billion in damage, in assessed damage and economic loss on this country, US $12.2 billion. This figure represents 56.7% of Jamaica's entire 2024 GDP. More than 215,000 structures were damaged or destroyed. Black River and Falmouth, two of our more historic towns, faced not repair but comprehensive reconstructions. Roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, and community infrastructure across western parishes sustained damage at a scale that this country has never experienced in modern history. $12.2 billion in damage in a country where our economy last year generated $21 billion of output. We're not talking about a bad hurricane season that requires some patching work and some insurance claims and a supplementary budget. We're talking about a catastrophic event that has damaged or destroyed the physical fabric of a significant portion of this nation. This government was able to source a very significant multilateral financing package of US $6.7 billion, built on the credibility of performance and discipline by the government of Jamaica. But as significant and as historic as it is, the package only covers 55% of the overall damage of economic loss. It leaves a financing gap of US $5.5 billion. $5.5 billion. This gap cannot be closed by public borrowing. Our fiscal responsibility framework, our fiscal rules would not allow it. And prudent debt management certainly would not permit it. Therefore, private capital, both domestic and international, must be mobilized alongside public investment to close this gap. Right? But will this private capital come? Let me address this question, because it is directly relevant to whether Fast Jamaica, the private investment pillar of NARA, will actually work, and is Jamaica a good prospect for investments? Mr. President, I firmly believe that Jamaica has a solid value proposition at this time. Our macroeconomic position entering the reconstruction period is the strongest that it has ever been in living memory. Our debt to GDP ratio was reduced from approximately 147% to approximately 62% in 13 years. A fact that speaks to the institutional anchoring of fiscal discipline in this country. Unemployment at a historic low of 3.3% before Melissa. Our net international reserves were at $6.9 billion as at the end of March, the highest ever recorded. Following Hurricane Melissa, all three major credit rating agencies reaffirmed Jamaica's sovereign rating. Moody's went further and issued an upgrade, citing the strength of our institutional framework and our record of discipline. Mr. President, Jamaica has a window of opportunity with the geopolitical environment, albeit very volatile. The global rules-based trade order has been fractured, supply chains are being reorganized, not primarily around cost, but around political trust. And this government has employed a foreign policy modality which has made us friends to all. Jamaica is the third largest English-speaking nation in the Americas, with a deep US-Jamaica bilateral relationship with close proximity to the US East and Gulf Coast ports. Mr. President, Jamaica is positioned for further investment to become the logistics hub of the Americas. Jamaica is prime for investment. Global capital is looking for a home, Mr. President. Our job is to build the legal architecture that says Jamaica is ready, the pathway is clear, and our project will be executed at speed and without having to navigate a bureaucratic maze. That is what NARA and FAST Jamaica achieves, and let me explain precisely how. Mr. President, FAST Jamaica is a private investment pillar of the bill that is designed to capture capital, and I believe it needs to be highlighted very much in this national dialogue. FAST Jamaica, the facilitated acceleration of strategic transformation, the framework creates a legally enabled expeditious pathway for private investment projects above a threshold of US 15 million across 12 designated priority sectors. These sectors span energy infrastructure, digital infrastructure, telecommunications, logistics, ports and aviation, water and sewage, low-income housing and urban development, high-value tourism, entertainment, creative industries, specialized healthcare, high-value agro-processing, advanced manufacturing, STEM education, and research and critical minerals and rare earths. And the Cabinet retains the power to designate additional sectors. And we're very proud of that. Now, Mr. President, I want to draw that Senate's attention to something that has been mentioned in passing. And that deserves some emphasis. The FAST Jamaica entry threshold was deliberately reduced from 150 million to US 15 million. The policy decision of setting the threshold at US 15 million is of significant importance to FAST Jamaica, as it can really open up opportunities for Jamaican private sector companies, for diaspora investors, for regional capital, consortiums of small firms pooling resources to invest in projects. Mr. President, there are projects sitting on the files of JAMPRO, the DBJ, and on the desks of private sector executives across this country, projects that have been held up, but not by a lack of capital or a lack of will, but by the bureaucratic maze that this bill is designed to dismantle. The process for accessing FAST Jamaica is transparent and sequential. An investor submits the project for assessment, the government assesses for strategic merit, economic impact, national interest, and recommends to Cabinet whether to proceed and on what terms. Cabinet then designates as a strategic investment project triggering the FAST Jamaica pathway. NARA then uses its powers under the bill to coordinate approvals across all relevant agencies. Mr. President, my hope is that with NARA, the era of proposals sitting on desk for years is finally over, and private capital will come to the table and utilize the FAST pillar and close this funding gap of US 5.5 billion. And of course, as we go through this process as a country and as a government that learns and adapts, we would expect that over this period, that all of the challenges that we have seen in the procurement process, in all of these approval processes, in the bureaucracy, that they will be addressed. And I know for sure that the procurement policy is being looked at as we speak. And therefore, at the end of the day and at the end of this period, when we see what works best, we expect that we will adapt best practices going forward. I want to address the centralization question. Mr. President, the concern I've heard most frequently in the debate is that NARA represents an inappropriate centralization of our authority, that it consolidates too much power in a single body, that it displaces existing agencies and establishes processes in ways that are constitutionally or institutionally problematic. I want to address this directly. And I think it rests on a misunderstanding of what centralization means in the context of disaster reconstruction. And I also think it conflates two very different things: the centralization of coordination and the centralization of power. NARA is not a superseded authority. It does not absorb the functions of line ministries, existing statutory bodies, or local government. NARA is not a superseded authority. It does not absorb the functions of line ministries, existing statutory bodies, or local government. What it does and what it must do is serve as a single point of national coordination across all those entities. It eliminates fragmentation, it eliminates interagency delay, it eliminates a situation familiar to every Jamaican who has ever watched a government project move from conception to groundbreaking, where a proposal that has cabinet approval still sits on seven different desks, awaiting 7 different sign-offs from 7 different agencies, operating on 7 different timelines with 7 different institutional priorities. I have been in the private sector all my professional life, and I can tell you without qualification that many serious investment proposals do not get executed in Jamaica due to the bureaucratic nightmare. This is the problem that this bill solves. The Fast Jamaica Pathway is a legislative commitment that an investor will receive a clear approval or rejection, not silence, not being passed around from one agency to the next, and not an invitation to come back 6 months when the relevant committee is going to meet. Mr. President, I ask those who argue for less centralization, when did decentralized, fragmented, multi-agency approaches to national programs deliver results at a scale and in a timely manner? Never. Right. We do not have the luxury of repeating that story with a US $12.2 billion economic damage that we as a country have. Large reconstruction efforts require coordination, decentralized structures, and large reconstruction efforts require coordination that decentralized structures are institutionally incapable of providing. And let me talk about Jamrock now. The accountability architecture. Mr. President, I want to talk about Jamrock, the Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Oversight Committee, which the Prime Minister has announced and will provide independent oversight of NARA's work. But I want to confess I'm in a position of somewhat a conflict of interest in this discussion because Jamrock is modeled on EPOC, the Economic Program Oversight Committee. EPOC was a social consensus body that I advocated for and worked closely with Dr. Peter Phillips, and I will tell you how this happened, Ramon, because you need to know the facts, my brethren. Okay? We and Ramon and Senator Ferguson, Small Ferguson and I, Senator Small Ferguson and I work very closely together, right now. But he was their own because he was their own at the time. And I myself and another CEO of another financial sector company sat down with Dr. Peter Phillips, and I said to Dr. Phillips, we are not signing that debt exchange agreement unless we get an oversight body. That is how EPOC came about. Okay? And I worked closely with Dr. Peter Phillips. We agreed on who would sit on this, who would sit on this body. Dr. Peter Phillips, we agreed on the unions, we agreed on agriculture, we agreed on small business, we agreed on the financial sector, we agreed on that's agriculture and small business, the unions. We agreed that would be the representation on EPOC. Dr. Peter Phillips, and I. I went to my office and I wrote the terms of reference with Mike Hilton and Mark Harrison, and EPOC was signed off the following morning. Okay? We're going to get to it. Right? So EPOC was not conceptualized by the PNP. The financial sector came to the table. You did. With the caveat, let me tell you why EPOC worked. And many people know why EPOC worked. But I will quote somebody. I'm going to quote Jeanette Calder, Executive Director at the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal. Hi, Jeanette. Okay. There is no more powerful tool for oversight than social consensus. And EPOC carried us through the economic reform program. It played a role in keeping the opposition then on side, keeping us informed, working with the Minister of Finance. End of quote. EPOC was created in 2013 to provide independent oversight of the program, IMF Extended Fund Facility, but it continued outside of IMF programs, because in 2019 we seized the IMF program. In 2020, after COVID, 2021 or so, we went back to the IMF event. So it oversaw Jamaica's economic reform program with or without an IMF agreement, right? And EPOC was wound down as the central bank got independence, and the Independent Fiscal Commission was established. Then the institutional framework was in place, right? EPOC was not written into law. EPOC was not embedded in any IMF agreement. A simple MOU with the Minister of Finance. It had no enforcement powers. It could not compel the government to do anything. It only could report and publish, hold press conferences, and lay its findings before the public, who for good reason believed EPOC to be independent, credible, and not influenced by the political class. Mr. President, it turned out that these limited powers exercised with rigor and with a genuine commitment were more effective at driving government accountability than many mechanisms with far more formal authority. EPOC held two political administrations to account. It reported when targets were met and when they were missed. It published its assessments in plain language for journalists and citizens and international investors who could read and understand it. It demonstrated that a civil society-led, non-partisan, public reported body could maintain its integrity through changes of government, through political pressures, through economic turbulence, and through the occasional, very uncomfortable conversations that we would have had with either side of the aisle. When the news is not good, the government vexed with you. When the news is better, the opposition vexed with you. When the government outperforms, the opposition is vexed with you because you highlight our performance, right? Jamrock replicates the model in the Reconstruction context. Jamrock is a functional replication of EPOC, which many view as highly successful and with an effective public accountability mechanism. As the IMF and the World Bank relied heavily on IDB, relied heavily on those reports from EPOC and those consultations with EPOC, so will the IMF and World Bank, IDB, and the other agencies who are funding the $6.7 billion of recovery rely on Jamrock for the independent oversight that it will provide. Okay. Jamrock will be chaired by Professor Peter Blair Hedry of Stanford University, a Jamaican economist of international standing with the independence, the credibility, and the platform to report without fear or favor. Jamrock will also include an opposition nominated member. So, as with EPOC, Jamrock is not written to legislation and is not in the NARA Act, but Jamrock can be just and effective as social consensus oversight body. Once it maintains its independence, it will be robust and an effective accountability mechanism. I am endorsing Jamrock and encouraging all well-thinking Jamaicans to do so. Transparency is not a concern. Transparency is not a concern. There's more than sufficient reporting into the minister, into the cabinet, into Parliament, and more importantly, to the public through Jamrock. And of course, the Prime Minister and Cabinet and all of those responsible, but Jamrock, as an independent body, will be reporting to the Jamaican public. In addition, NARA is required under the bill to lay before Parliament its annual report and audited financial statements. NARA will have at all times an electronic list of all reconstruction and resilience projects publicly. Transparency. Additionally, NARA will be subject to independent external audit integrity commission, and the Auditor General shall be entitled at all times to examine the accounts and other records in relation to the authority. That's in the bill, right? The PAC and the PAAC retains their full oversight roles. Cabinet retains full authority over all major projects and agreements, as it should, under our democratic and constitutional arrangements. The CEO, there's about who does the CEO report into? The CEO reports into the minister, who reports into the cabinet, and the chairman of the cabinet is the Honorable Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, is the chairman of the cabinet. You could not be reporting to a higher body than the cabinet. That's enshrined in our constitution. So let's go to the opportunity that we have as a country. Right? The private sector must prepare for the significant opportunities which will transpire and the tremendous scale of infrastructure development and investments that will take place across Jamaica. The financing is in place, US $6.7 billion from the IDB, World Bank, CAF, and CDB. That multilateral anchor does not simply represent money, it represents risk mitigation. When the World Bank co-finances a project and the IDB is in the capital structure alongside a private investor, the risk profile of that investment materially improves. On that note, I want to make a particular point about domestic long-term capital, because it's perhaps the most important and least discussed dimension of the financing strategy. And Ramon, we work together on this. Jamaica's pension funds or insurance companies, these institutions manage billions of dollars in assets and have historically been constrained in their ability to deploy capital into long-term Jamaica infrastructure projects because the pipeline of bankable projects has been thin and the legal framework to do so has been uncertain. Fast Jamaica will change that. A project with cabinet designation, narrow coordination, and a multilateral co-financing is a materially different credit proposition than an unsupported project seeking development approval through the standard process. It is more bankable, it is predictable, it has more attractive long-term institutional. It will attract more long-term institutional capital. Our pension funds and insurance companies should be examining this investment pipeline right now. Every economy that has Every economy that has successfully used a reconstruction imperative to leapfrog its prior development trajectory has done so by a deliberate, explicit choice not to restore what existed before, but to build something better. The choice we have made as a government is to use this reconstruction moment strategically. Prime Minister Holness has stated clearly, and I believe correctly, that we're not restoring a pre-Minister Jamaica. We're building a post-Minister Jamaica with climate-resilient infrastructure, renewable energy systems, world-class trade, logistics infrastructure, and a digital economy backbone. Roads and bridges not built not to pre-Minister standards, but to withstand Category 5. Urban centres planned for economic clusters planned. A new Kingston Public Hospital, the Port of Kingston Logistics Platform, development and commercial opportunities, and I say this to the private sector, get on board. Development and commercial opportunities will certainly arise for the private sector during and the post-reconstruction period. The financial sector must step up to the plate to intermediate package and structure solutions for their institutional, corporate, small and medium enterprises who are able to grasp, research and plan and capitalize on these opportunities that are going to hit Jamaica and significant capital flows that will hit Jamaica. Do not get caught up in the noise. Do not wait on the sidelines. Plan, prepare and execute. Mr. President, I urge us all to view the destruction caused by Minister not just as a catastrophe, but which it undoubtedly was, but also a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The pipeline of projects would take us decades to execute without Minister, without Nara. We now have the opportunity to deliver them at pace and scale because the social consensus, welcome to Jamrock, and the national focus that disaster has created, painful as its origins are, will provide a window for action that normal political and institutional conditions rarely permit. NARA and Fast Jamaica are the instruments through which we convert advantage into executed investment. Jobs, infrastructure, inclusive growth, business opportunities, increasing wealth, increasing purchasing power for our Jamaican people. So in conclusion, Mr. President, the concern raised in the debate and the public domain are concerns for a functioning parliament and a vibrant democracy, and they are to be respected. The answers to those concerns are in the bill and the accountability framework. The accountability architecture is rigorous, the governance framework is multi-layered, the private investment pathway is thoughtfully designed to be inclusive and fit for purpose. This bill is built for purpose. This bill is purpose-built for the task, a time-bound national delivery mandate. So with the same national spirit that we embraced the fiscal policy framework and the fiscal rules, when this debate is over and this bill is passed, let's work constructively. One Jamaica. Let's work constructively and continue our efforts to build a better Jamaica, which we all aspire to. Mr. President, I commend the bill to the Senate. Thank you.
No. Now here's what happened now. I meant to unmute because I was in the picture with Keith. I had to mute my mic so you don't hear an echo. And I swore I unmute. So for about 15 minutes I'm chatting to myself. Sorry about that, folks. What was I saying now? I was talking about, and because I don't have the phone, never mind. But what I'm saying is that with Keith, he being a businessman, and a businessman from a PNP family, explaining to all of us the concerns that was raised by the opposition. So the PNP people are going to get concerned, but I don't think they can have any doubt in their mind that Keith Duncan, who is now a government senator, with all his experience with projects and how they are stalled and his experience, knowing that there are projects that can't go nowhere or people just don't bother with it. Or maybe then take the money and go somewhere else, go put the whatever it is they want in place. And so he is able to explain to them why the fast tracking is not anything to be alarmed about and how it would benefit the country, right? So I don't think that the PNP people, the comrades and the comrades, would have a difficulty in believing what he says. And that is also a critical link that Keith brings to the table. And I believe that that is all I say. I'm not going to take up no more of your time. Let me see what else was I saying. I remember what I chat about, because it was muted and I didn't know. But anyway, let me see if there's anything else. No, there's nothing else. I think I covered everything. And I think I'm going to leave it here. But I hope you found what Keith Duncan had to say, Senator Duncan, interesting. And um, what I actually was saying, is that, oh, I don't remember now. I was saying that would you believe that despite the fact that Hurricane Melissa struck in October of 2028, it has been what, 5 months, right, out of the fiscal year. Five parishes was damaged, badly damaged. And would you believe that at the end of the fiscal year, we had collected $8 billion more in tax revenue than programmed for? Can you imagine? $8 billion more in tax revenue than what was programmed for, despite the fact that we have this massive damage. And you may ask the question, hey, not so right. As I was speaking to you, the thought actually came to me as to what happened. Remember, the key in all of this, is clearing the roads. Once you can clear the roads and the business, you can get trucks into the business areas to deliver, and you can get the people out of the communities into the business areas to work. Then once you do that, even if you don't have no light, the business can still operate. Why? Because the business them have money, profits, so they can quickly buy generators. And if the roof was damaged, then can get workmen and put up back the roof because they have money. So what happened was, clearly the businesses were able to get back um, into business sooner because the roads were cleared. So they could go back into business activities and generate income. And once they start to generate income, and the people can come out and buy and get back their job, then even in those areas that were badly damaged, right, you had economic activities going on. So it would appear that maybe, for the most part, businesses were able to recover quickly. They don't have no light, but they have generators, and they were able to buy generators, right? And they put on back them roof. And I wonder if this is the reason why they were able to recover so quickly. But it's either that, or had we not had Melissa, what would the economic activities have brought in terms of tax revenue, right? But I do believe that this may be a signal that the business sector in those five parishes had recovered much faster than anticipated, even though for months Brownstone didn't have light. When you pass through Brownstone, a source of generator you hear. The roofs weren't damaged, but they didn't have the light. The light poles went down, right? But they were doing business and people were in the town buying and doing this sort of thing. So that is probably what would account for that. So we look forward to see how this fast track thing work in practice, because putting something in place is one thing, but implementing it and seeing how it works in practice is another matter. The government may well need to look at these agencies. I don't know if anybody has ever done any assessment of these agencies to see whether or not what they need is more human resource. Find the money and give them more persons to go and do the assessment and whatever else they need, and most importantly, look at the technology. Go look and see what them other set of people doing in them other countries, especially countries that have like earthquake. You don't need no hurricane, because hurricane easy to, you can, well, I tell you, some hurricane are so easy enough to come and blow down the light pole them and blow down the trees, even though your house might be safe. But look at what those countries who are, especially if them have fast development going on, and see what kind of process they have in place to for the approval, and see if it is fast and if it is quick, and then not cutting corners, and then have a similar approval set up like us, with the, you have to get subdivision permit, you have to get building permit, you have to get environmental permit, and all the whole percentage, the fireman permit, all kind of something you're supposed to get when you're putting up any structure. Look into that, and then see now if it is a technology problem or a human resource problem, and solve the problem. Because this is only dealing, all of this fast thing and the narrow thing is only dealing with the reconstruction. It does not affect those private people outside of the reconstruction. Them going still have to go through the process. And as a matter of fact, the process going to be even slower, because the government narrow projects going to get priority. That's the long and short of what it amounts to. So while we're doing all of this, maybe the government needs to get sister what's her name again, Audrey Marks, to go and look at the possibility of what she can do for those agencies that are required by law to do approvals for construction of any kind. Yes. Anyway, let me leave it here. I want to thank everyone for joining me. And just when I feel good, signing off and say, at last there is no hitch, when we look down to rocks of ages, Mrs. said the thing was muted. Oh, no, don't laugh after me. Anyway, let me thank you all for joining me today. And I feel a little bit more comfortable with the live, so I might come on the live. It saved me a lot of time, a lot of time. If you want to know how long it takes to do a video, my goodness. So anyway, so thanks for joining. And remember, please, to give the video thumbs up. You have been doing so, I see. Share the video as well, please, as well as subscribe if you have not yet done so. And of course, you've been leaving your comments in the comment section, which is wonderful. Until next time, you take very good care of yourselves and walk good. Now I have to put on back my glasses and scroll all the way down to the bottom to see. Whew. Yes, man. I have on my glasses, I'm trying to see something far. So my eye them funny, Yes, I soon reach there. Yeah. Take care of yourselves. Bye.